At a very high level, Google cares about moving the web forward. The web has become the dominant platform of our era. And moving it forward, advancing it, is something that we think is critical to the entire ecosystem, and something that Google, of course, is deeply interested in. Now, how is Google going to move the internet forward? How are we going to partner with the industry and advance this amazing platform that we all depend upon? Well, I'm going to talk about how we're going to do it and what are the three primary areas of investment. But before I talk about those areas, I want to talk to you about some of the challenges developers have faced, and all of us have faced over the past 30 years. Some of the tensions that have reoccurred, we've oscillated on these tensions over the past 30 years, and we at Google believe that we are now at the cusp of solving some of these tensions and enabling new kinds of applications. So bear with me just for a few minutes, and let's think back as to the challenges we faced in the past several decades. Think back to the era of the mainframe. You know, that era was marked by very powerful computing capability for its day. But that computing capability was not very accessible. People like you and me, we didn't have access to a mainframe. Unless you were lucky enough to work at a company that had a mainframe, and even then, you were given a thin time slice of that compute power. So there was power, but it wasn't very accessible. What about deploying software in that era? Well, deploying software was relatively easy. Once you got your job up on the mainframe, the deployment of that software to clients was easy. The clients were dumb terminals. Easy deployment, dumb terminals. The PC era came about, and in many respects, we completely oscillated on these tensions. We gave up the massive computing power of the mainframe a little bit when we got the personal computer, but we gained accessibility. It was my personal computer. It was in my hands. It was in everyone's basements. And so we traded off power for accessibility. But what happened to the ease of deploying software? Any of you who've ever deployed software to thousands of machines, let alone millions of consumers, you know what happened. The PC era made it somewhat difficult. Am I going to break other applications when I install this application? Will I face DLL? How do I deal with the different varieties of client operating systems? It became very expensive and challenging to deploy software. But what happened? We went from dumb terminals to powerful clients. The era of the internet came about, and in many respects, we went back to the same tensions again. The emergence of the Netscape browser ushered in the web as the browser as the client that mattered for the web. And that browser was great. It gave us the ease of deployment again. You want an app like Gmail or Salesforce? You just type in the URL, and there it comes your app. But what happened? We went back to the dumb terminal. In many respects, the browser limited us in what we were able to do and didn't give us the power of the native client. What about on the server side? We went from mainframe to PC to what today is massive compute clouds. The killer applications of today, whether it be search or Amazon or eBay or Craigslist or social app, these require massive computing capability. They require what we call clouds. Do you have a cloud? I suspect not. Clouds, in many respects, are just as inaccessible as mainframes were. At Google, we spend millions upon millions upon millions of dollars every 90 days, every quarter, investing in our data centers, as do other companies. And that is out of the reach of most developers. So is this where we are? Forever we're going to face these tensions? I get massive compute power, but it's inaccessible. I get ability to deploy software, but it's a dumb terminal. At Google, we believe we can solve these problems by making the cloud more accessible and by making the client more powerful. When we say client, we mean the browser. We call this an in-phase wave transformation. Instead of canceling each other out, we get amplification. We get something revolutionary. How is it that Google is going to make the cloud more accessible? How is it that we collectively can make the client, the browser, more powerful? We're going to hear those topics discussed at this conference. Now, some of you in the audience are looking at this and saying, well, Vic, you missed something really important. Between the cloud and the client, what about connectivity? And you're right. certainly, if you're talking about an historical perspective over 30 years, you have to think about the revolution we've seen in connectivity. How many here remember coupling modems, 300 baud coupling modems? How about the Hayes 1200 baud modem, 2400 baud, 9600? I was going to go crazy when I got my 5600. I thought, what could be faster than this? And today, we think nothing. That most of us, certainly many consumers in the US, have many megabytes of connectivity to their homes. In other countries, the wireless phenomenon goes well beyond even what we experienced in the wired world. I just got back from a trip from Japan. Would you believe, in Japan, I picked up a phone. It was nothing unusual. It was available for sale. The phone was getting 7.2 megabit per second broadband wireless. Isn't that amazing? So we've had this explosion, this revolution. We almost take it for granted. Connectivity has become pervasive, but us as developers, it has a big impact when we think about writing an application. 10, 15 years ago, when we wrote apps, we didn't necessarily think that connectivity would be pervasive like it is today. Today, we have to design for that, whether it be wired or wireless, and that presents some challenges. How do we keep connectivity pervasive, open, and usable for developers? We're going to talk about that.